vedrai farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno girano, delle belle turbando al riposo.
Wow, just because I'm busy with my new book, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry, that doesn't mean the world stopped. That doesn't mean the black mob violence stopped. That doesn't mean the black on white crime stopped. Hi, this is Colin Flaherty with White Girl Bleed a Lot. Here we talk about racial violence, black on white crime, black mob violence, the knockout game. And more we're starting to talk about this new theme that is really dominating a lot of conversations now. The new theme that black people are relentless victims of white racism, often expressed at the end of a badge worn by relentlessly white police officers. Boy, that's a theme I really talk about a lot in my book, new book, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. But that's something we are seeing right now, today. We saw it yesterday at a funeral in Los Angeles. Stevie Wonder was giving a eulogy. He broke up his eulogy in order to talk about that. We'll hear that. We saw it in Ferguson just last night, where a large group of black people were all unhappy at these cops who had the nerve to say they weren't the problems, they were the solutions. And so there's a lot of this going on. Let's just get to it.
We live in a time where I believe we have a president that truly wanted to see the world come together, to see this nation come together, but yet too many people are judging their dislike of him based on the color of his skin.
All right, let's head on out to Ferguson. Last night, big meeting at the city council, talked about civilian review board. Lots of argy-bargy. Lots of people talking about the fact that because they're black, they're the victims of relentless white racism that happens all the time.
Malfunctioning disability. Oh, no. Oh.
And that went on for several minutes. Here is what witnesses are saying happened. A woman says she was getting up to leave when she says she was pushed aside by Jeff Rorda. That's the head of the Police
and of course,
Officers
there was
Association.
Violence.
Shocking video recently posted to YouTube of a classroom of fourth grade students out of control. And it was shot in an IPS classroom. Good evening, I'm Debbie Knox.
And I'm Bob Donaldson. That disturbing video is an example of what some say many teachers deal with in many schools.
You can hear how young the voices in this YouTube video are.
Oh yeah,
Kids
it happens
caught on
all the
camera
time.
fighting in an IPS classroom. 2 minutes long, the video was shot inside a class at what used to be Longfellow Middle. At one point, you see a student throw a chair. The teacher tries to separate the kids, but less than a minute later, another fight breaks out.
If you want to ride with me, my squad.
How about down in Virginia? Large fight in Roanoke, Virginia. Police use pepper spray to break up the altercation at Patrick Henry High School. Give me liberty or give me pepper spray. Another one, same day. This is in Euclid High School, Ohio. Large-scale black mob violence. A lot of black people fighting in the schools. Oh, here's one. This guy didn't get the memo that if you're going to be a victim of racism, you can't go around beating up chicks. He blamed it on the women. He admitted he was arguing with the victim, but said that she engaged him first and pulled on his shirt. Okay, here's a little bit of argy-bargy down at Chuck E. Cheese. Man, there's so much going on at Chuck E. Cheese. Large-scale black mob violence. Okay, this is from the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities campus. Kid was walking around, ran across a large group of black people. They beat him up, chipped his tooth. Oh, the last scene heading toward Dinkytown. Suspects are all described as black. They also beat up an old dude with a cane. Another case in, they broke his arm. How about in Durham? 2 carloads of black people racing through the streets of Durham having a gun battle.
We are following developing news out of Bessemer right now. Bessemer City high school students got into numerous fights this afternoon.
Yeah, enough so the police say some of the students were actually pepper sprayed. Of course, you know that's a big issue right now.
Well, Jonathan, it all started with just one single fight. A Bessemer police officer was able to break that fight up, but subsequently, right after that, a number of fights broke out, and that's when pepper spray was used on the students. That is according to the Bessemer Police Department and the Bessemer Board of Education. However, the students are telling a different story, saying they were complying when they were sprayed with pepper spray. They also say that a sheriff officer who is contracted through a company, through the school system that's not a part of the Bessemer Police Department, was actually slamming students to the ground.
We didn't do anything. Big bad racist cops were to blame.
When they arrived, they were told to go home. Of course, that did not sit well with some of the parents out here.
I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to see my child. I want to make sure my child is okay. That's just not normal. And then for all the ambulance, it's like seven more ambulances came up here, and we got 4 fire trucks up there, and look like the whole Bessemer police force is up here.
Let's head on down to Tyler, Texas, to the Tyler Lee School. Large-scale black mob violence, lots of fighting, large-scale fights caused the lockdown of at Tyler Lee, named after the Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Not to worry, parents say this kind of stuff happens there all the time.
These families have waited so long
let's
for
go back
justice.
to
Finally, their opportunity to
go back
address
to
the
Detroit.
men who killed their sons. But what one of the defendants had to
Remember
say to
this
them
one?
left everyone shaking their heads. Yet when Young had his chance to apologize to the families, he did nothing of the sort.
I'd like to say sorry to the families of Ayanna Jones, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, and I want to apologize to them for not being able to get justice for their loved ones who was murdered in cold blood. And in respect for the peaceful protest, I want to say hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter. That's it, Your Honor.
You know what? If Stevie Wonder wants to lecture me that the only reason I think Barack Obama is the worst president in the history of this country is because I'm white and he's black, you know what? I'll give it to him. I won't listen to him, but, I'll give it to him. Then we see these guys from Detroit saying the same thing. Hands up, don't shoot. That means black people are relentless victims of relentless white violence and racism. Did you recognize the guys who did the hands up, don't shoot in the courtroom? Those 2 guys are the 2 guys that met up with a couple of white kids from Detroit. And this all happened a week ago in the courtroom. And they were sentenced to life imprisonment because they took the 2 white kids, took them to a field, shot them in the back of the head, killed them. That's them. Well, but here's the problem with that whole narrative. Black people in this country are not cooperating with it. We see a couple of examples here. We see large-scale black mob violence in a whole bunch of schools just on the same day. This is somehow caused by white racism? If you want to say that bad schools and bad conditions and all this stuff are caused by white racism, that's fine. Okay, go for it. I mean, that's what people say. That is the main narrative today. And so we have all these people. We have black intellectuals, black academics, black political leaders, and their white enablers sending out this one message over and over and over and over and over. You are not responsible for the violence, mayhem, elevated level of criminality if you are a black person. Wow. How's that working out for you? Last night on O'Reilly, Bill was talking with Kimberly Guilfoyle and Lise Wheel. They were all kind of shocked and awed that teachers would be going to these conferences on white privilege, where they learn white people are bad and all the time, and the white racism pretty much explains everything. But that's even less than the tip of the iceberg. The big damage is done. Not when the teachers go to the consultants, but when the consultants go to the teachers, which is happening in hundreds of school districts around the country. Just this week, I got an email from a teacher in California. She said she went, she's part of a district where they have these consultants come in and they teach them about racism and how black students are performing poorly in their schools because of racist white teachers and a racist white system that creates this enormous disparity. The teachers had to put their heads down on the desk for 15 minutes and contemplate the damage that slavery had done to black people. And somehow the teachers were responsible for this slavery. Got a call from Southern California a couple days ago. This is from one of the most exclusive and richest areas of the state. He was picking up his daughter from school, third grader. And she said, "Dad, did you know that white people steal stuff from black people?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, yeah, white people steal black music. We heard all about it in music class today. That's third grade. The Pied Piper of this whole train the teachers to talk about white racism is Glenn Singleton. He runs a group called Pacific Educational Group. He has a book called Courageous Conversations, which I've read a couple times and marked up. One thing about Glenn Singleton or a lot of people in this movement, they're not shy. They don't dance around it. They come out and say it. They come out and say white racism is responsible for this enormous disparity in schools between performance and discipline. That's white racism only, and white racism explains everything. It's permanent and it's everywhere. So now you get a bunch of kids. That's all they learn. They learn they're not responsible for their own actions. Then the teachers wonder, and the parents wonder, and people like me and people like you wonder, what's causing all this violence? Well, they're learning it. Where do they learn it? They learn it in school. They learn it at home. They learn it in church. They learn it in music and popular culture. This movement is growing and growing and growing. And it's only podcasts like this or YouTube channels like this. My last book and my next book, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. That's how we're going to fight it. That's how we're going to fight this big lie. That's how we are going to expose this as the biggest lie of our generation. This is Colin Flaherty. I'll talk to you next time.
Alla gloria militar, alla gloria militar.